Welcome to the Investor Fuel Real Estate Investing Show, where I interview the nation's top real estate entrepreneurs, industry leaders, and other amazing entrepreneurs to help educate and inspire you to take your business and your life to the next level. My goal is to add tremendous value to you during every single episode of this show. If you get value, I'd love it if you subscribe on your favorite podcast player, subscribe on YouTube, and my very favorite, please share this with your community so we can impact even more entrepreneurs. Let's start today's show. Hey, everybody, welcome back to the show. Today's going to be a good one. We're talking about sales strategies for real estate investors with the one and only Leif Meyerson. So we're going to be talking about kind of what's working. We're going to talk a little bit about what's working now as well, right? We're in a different place in the economy or the cycle than we have been in the past. That's how the economy works. There's ups and downs. So we're going to talk about some strategies as well as kind of what might be different during kind of a down market, if you will, right? So Leif, welcome to the show, buddy.
Hey, man, it's a pleasure to be here. I listen to the show. I'm not an active REI guy. I have some passive stuff, but I've worked with a lot of REI companies in the past.
Yep.
When it comes to sales psychology, and you got a great name in the biz, so happy to be here.
And a good face. Like they say, I have a face for podcasts. So I don't know. I'm just making some shit up right now.
I got a face for radio.
Yeah, I know. I was like, I don't know what to say here, but I'll try to make a joke. So usually I'm the one that laughs the most at my own jokes, like some folks. But so guys, Leif is a sales trainer, builds sales teams, specifically for coaches and info marketers and folks, stuff like that. But a lot of the sales techniques are very similar. We're going to be talking about for real estate investors today and dealing with sellers specifically. So Leif, tell us a little bit about your background before we jump in.
Yeah, so I mean, I've been in high ticket sales for 2.5 decades. Worked with, I started obviously on the phones, closed millions and millions of dollars myself, and then transitioned into team lead positions, director of sales, sales floor managers. Biggest floor that I ran was about 160 sales reps. We were doing just over $1 million in revenue a week. I've grown sales floors from just a few reps to dozens and dozens of reps, taking them from, 7 figures to 8, 9 figures. And past 5 years, I've been doing some high ticket consulting, working with a lot of the biggest names that, you'll hear in the info world, the Cody Sperber's, the Cam Dunlaps, the Pace Morby's, things like that. And I love sales. It's my passion. I love working with sales reps. I love working in developing systems and strategies. And it's just kind of my thing.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, no matter what you're selling, one of the biggest things that is important in building relationships, right? Like that rapport piece. So give us some kind of pro tips on building rapport, because I think a lot of folks, they're going right for the kill, right? They're just trying to quote sell, but you can't sell until somebody trusts you, until they feel that connection, right? Especially on whether it's high ticket coaching or one of the highest tickets is actually selling a house, right? So share your thoughts on just that rapport building process and how investors can improve.
Well, I think it is the number one thing that you need to be able to do if you're going to be successful in any sales interaction. So I don't care if it's the beginning of an REI sale and like the acquisitions part, or if it's dispo, or if it's recruiting private money. You have to be able to build rapport. And there's a lot of old antiquated strategies out there, like mirroring and, you have a cat, I have a cat. How's the weather? It's all a bunch of garbage. One of the best ways that you can create what I call true rapport is by doing something I refer to as active listening. All right. So in the beginning of the interaction, a lot of people will ask like close-ended questions or guiding questions. Like, I'm sure you're looking in at the market and you're trying to sell, right? I'm just coming up with that off the top of my head, but they'll ask these close-ended questions. And that's the exact opposite of what you should do in the beginning of an interaction. You should ask open-ended questions, then zip your lips, open your ears, and truly understand what they're trying to say, and then guide the conversation from the backseat by utilizing curiosity questions. So when we're active listening to what a potential client or customer or motivated seller is sharing, we are taking mental note of things they're sharing. And then we ask them to expand on those things. So we repeat back the exact verbiage they say, whatever it might be. And then we sandwich that with a curiosity questions. Can you be more specific about that? Okay. Oh, dive more into that. Why is that important to you right now? And then zip your lips and active listen and allow them, as Simon Sinek, one of my favorite guys out there right now when it comes to this kind of thing, he says, allow them to empty their bucket. And if you do that, you're going to start developing true rapport and trust, because you will never, ever be able to gain influence in a sales interaction if you first don't establish that true rapport and trust. So one of the best ways you can do that is by active listening and not rushing the beginning part. So many people, and this is one of my favorite quotes, so many people listen with the intent to reply, not the intent to understand. And in this current climate, consumers and people out there, they're far more intelligent than they were 20, 30 years ago when it comes to just consumer awareness and those kind of things. So by making value statements when you're trying to build rapport, it breaks rapport and puts up those walls. So you got to make sure you have patience when it comes to those kind of things and spend that time really getting to know your prospect.
And what are some tips for asking the right open-ended questions? Because you're also trying to gather information, right? So maybe you could share some tips on like what are some questions that clearly ask, especially when somebody's guarded, that would get them to maybe open up a little bit more as well.
Yeah, so obviously it depends on the situation we're in, right? So, I mean, if we're cold calling, that's going to be completely different than if it's a warm or a hot lead. But and then of course you have to intro the call the right way. So you have to engage, you have to establish authority, and you have to frame the call the right way. But let's say you did all that the right way. So you engage them the right way with a good question, or regardless, you engage them, you establish authority, you frame the call. How I always like to open up diving in is asking a wide open question. One of the things I've found a lot of success with is going, hey, Mike, I just want to kind of, like I said, get to know you and your situation a little bit better. Give me like a 60-second infomercial on you. Like, who's Mike? What makes
Yeah.
Mike tick? Just asking something blanket like that will allow them, people love to talk about themselves. So
Right.
if you're not asking like a guided question, like, tell me about why you want to sell your house. What's the most important thing you're looking to get out of, this kind of a transaction? Well, now that's going to put up walls, right? Because you're asking them to get into the sales process right away.
Right.
And if you lower those walls by just asking to share about themselves, they're
Yeah.
going to start just word vomiting because people love to talk about themselves. And then you can
Right.
active listen and guide with those curiosity questions.
Yeah. There's this phrase that's been thrown around a lot, that I've heard a lot over the past, couple of years, I'd say. We're in a trust recession, right?
Yes.
And it's like, it could be the divide that happened from COVID, like political stuff. Like it could be just how polarizing the media is, how polarizing social media is. But people just generally don't trust anybody these days until they've earned it, right?
Yeah, 100%. And so many people in the sales arena right now. So I'm talking about people that are actually out in sales interactions. They try to rush the process too much, right? They try to get right to the point. It's like they're in a hurry. Well, you got somebody on the phone, or you got somebody in person, or you're in somebody's house. Take the time. It doesn't take that long to develop some true rapport and ask curiosity questions, to be genuinely curious about another person and really care about what they're sharing with you. And if you do that, you're going to find that the ability to gain influence later in the interaction is far easier, because you're right. So many people come into every interaction with these massive walls. They're just waiting for the other shoe to drop. And then a lot of these sales pros, they've been trained in a way where it's like, okay, here are the 8 questions I need to ask and get answers to. And it's like, man, you're missing the bigger picture. And I think there's a real lack of understanding of just basic human psychology when it comes to gaining influence that we're seeing out there right now.
Yeah. And you mentioned something a few minutes ago. If you said, I think you made a reference, if it's a cold calling lead. So let's talk about, I mean, I think that's one of the problems that a lot of entrepreneurs have and real estate investors as well, that they treat all leads the same, no matter what the lead source is, right? There's colder channels than others. So can you share your thoughts and tell us a bit about, how to maybe treat different channels differently?
Absolutely. So, there's three different lead types. Okay. Now, obviously, there's subsets of each lead type. And I mean, we'd be here all day talking about that. But there's three basic categories that every lead is going to fall into. It's cold, warm, and hot. So cold leads are people that they don't know you from Adam. They're not expecting your call. They didn't, request to be contacted. So you just maybe doing a skip trace, and finding their number because they met certain criteria. That's a cold lead. Then you have warm leads. So this is somebody that maybe opted into your email list or something like that. They kind of raised their hand. And then we have hot leads. Hot leads are like people that booked an appointment on your calendar or are a hot follow up or something like that. So, what I train my sales pros to do with cold leads, you have about 3 seconds to engage. Okay. So, the biggest mistakes that I see people doing with cold leads is number one, they have horrible tech. Okay. So, I'm sure you get calls all the time. I mean, homeowners, we get home service calls, hey, roofing, solar, all that kind of stuff. What drives me crazy is there's always a gap. I answer the phone, hello, and then it's like sick. Oh, yes, hello, Mr. Meyerson. Well,
All right.
it
Yeah.
kills engagement. So
As
make
they say, your bullshit meter like starts going crazy, right?
100%. So if you're using some kind of a power dialer, make sure that you don't have that gap because you have about 3 seconds or you're going to lose that cold interaction. The next thing with cold leads is you have to have an engaging question, right? It's got to be a little bit, your tone needs to be obviously a little bit more enthusiastic, but not salesy. Your pace shouldn't be as quick as you think. So many people speed talk to cold leads. You don't need to. All right. But then you need to have a high engagement style question. And, depending on the industry, it just needs to be current, market relevant, a high engagement question that people are going to want to answer. That's how you engage a cold lead. Right. And then we go into establishing authority and framing and getting into the rest of the call. Warm leads, you have a little bit longer. You have about 10 to 15 seconds to engage a warm lead. Okay. You don't need to engage with a high level question. All right. You can be a little bit more laid back in your tonality and your pace because these people who requested some kind of information are on your email list or something. You're not the only one they requested the information from, right? They probably went on 30 different sites and requested that information. So make sure that you're standing out. So many people in the sales industry, they come in hot, right? Like, hey, Mike, how you doing? This is Leif over at... Don't do that with a warm or a hot lead. Come back.
Yeah.
Hey, Mike, it's Leif over at blah, blah, blah. So my tone's a little bit different. My pace is a little bit different, and it's going to be disarming.
Yeah.
Hot leads, ooh, you have like 30 seconds to engage with a hot lead. So you have a little bit more leeway, but you got to get it done. And then you really, with hot leads, I like to envision myself as like the old wise man behind the desk, kind of like what you look right now, right? Like I want to pick your brain about X, Y, and Z. And so, like, if you were going to ask stock advice from Warren Buffett, how would he talk to you? That's how you can talk to a hot lead, right? And it's going to be different than everybody else they've talked to out there. And it's going to really set you up well to get into active listening and building that trust.
And if you have like an inbound lead, let's say, how do you, I mean, when you first take that call, what if you don't know if it's warm, hot, warm, or cold yet? Like, how do you kind of
Well, if
profile it?
it's an inbound lead, are you talking
Yeah.
about like they're calling you?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Well, then that's a warm lead, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, you want to be a little bit more enthusiastic. You need to engage them on that inbound lead. You need to establish authority and be of service to that person instead of going right for the jugular. Like, what's this call going to be about? And here's what I'm going to do for you. Don't
Yeah.
get too over eager. have the patience, build the relationship.
Yeah. On that note, like let's talk about kind of the sales conversion cycle, right? Like a lot of people, I mean, historically, there's people that want to do like one call closes when they're talking to folks, and there's a balance, right? You don't want it to go on so long. It can't be like a 10 call process where your competitors are just coming behind your back and closing it either. But just talk about like that cycle time, that conversion cycle time, because for high ticket stuff, it's consultative. I mean, I get why people want to take a little time to think about it. I mean, I do too, right? So, how do you kind of balance like uh, allowing the cycle time to work, but not like lingering so long that people change their mind or go another route with a competitor or something like that?
Very good question. So, first of all, I'm always asking for their business at the end of the interaction, right?
Yeah.
So, regardless, I'm going to go through that interaction with the idea of asking for their business. And, I try to do it 2 to 3 times on an interaction. But, how we do that is not pushy, right? You can't be like super aggressive in your close because it's consultative, right? So you can't be
Right.
that yin and yang. But you definitely want to ask for their business because a closed mouth doesn't get food, right?
Yep.
Now, somebody says I need to think about it, those kind of things, which can be understandable. Make sure you're never getting off the phone unless you have another booked appointment. Okay? That is huge. So once you realize that the sale isn't going to happen during that interaction, you don't take off your closer hat. Your next close needs to be closing your next appointment, right? And getting that booked and getting it on their calendar. And try never to set an appointment out with a potential sale more than 72 hours.
Yeah.
Okay, you start going out more than 72 hours, we all forget 50% of what we just talked about within a 24-hour time period,
Yeah.
right? So,
Yeah. Absolutely.
that's main is you got to go for the booked appointment next. Another thing I will say about the follow-up sequence, there you have to engage them in between interactions. And so many people engage with, hey, just checking in, or hey, wanted to blah, blah, blah. No, what you need to do in that engagement is have like an aha moment and share it with them. Like, hey, I was watching this YouTube video of Jim Rohn and it made me think of our conversations. Thought you would get a chuckle out of it,
Yeah.
right? Hey, was seeing this in the market and made me think of our conversation. Thought you might find it interesting. So now you're at the top of their mind. You're giving value in between your interactions and you're not asking for anything,
Yeah.
right? So that way you have a much higher likelihood of having them show for that follow-up appointment.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. That's great. So, what are I'm sure we've covered some of this already. What are some pitfalls that you see of a lot of sales folks just kind of falling into some of the same traps that just don't work? I know you probably just mentioned a couple of them, but anything else that we didn't cover yet?
Yeah, so I think the biggest pitfall that I hear from salespeople out there, whether that be owner operators, real estate people, high ticket, is they talk too much.
Yeah.
Okay. Like my biggest pet peeve is when you ask somebody for their business. So let's say we're trying to lock up a wholesale deal, right? And you say, I think this is perfect for you. This is exactly what you need. Like, let's go ahead, let's get this thing under contract and get going. Then zip your lips. Like, don't keep talking. And I hear this all the time when I'm doing call reviews is they'll ask for the sale, they won't get an immediate response from the prospect, and then they'll start talking again. Well, what
They
does
get
that
nervous.
do? Remember, in order to gain influence, you need to have true rapport, and then you have to be the most certain, right? The person with the most certainty, once there's rapport, will win the influence game. So by you jumping in and talking, guess what? You don't come off certain anymore. You come off less confident, which then raises the spidey sense on the potential client or customer. So stop talking. And guess what? They're going to talk again. I've literally on a sales call myself asked for the business just over 14 minutes of silence.
Oh, wow.
Now, I made some noises. I did the, but I didn't say a word. And guess what? They came back and said, you know what? You're right. Let's do this. Why? Because they were processing all of the information that I just gave them. We don't give clients and or potential clients and prospects enough time to digest all the stuff we just did. And then once they digest, they're only going to come back with 4 different responses. They're going to say, yes, let's go. Then great, sign them up. They're going to ask a buying question, right? They're going to say, well, you said this about this. Tell me more. Answer their question, build more value, ask for their business again. Or they're going to come up with 2 different styles of objections. A stall, which is like, I need to think about it. I need to talk to XYZ. Or a true objection. You know, I would love to do this. I don't have the money, right? And then you go through what I call the helix. And I mean, that's a whole different training that I go through. But that's the only 4 responses that you're going to get when you ask for their business and you zip your lip.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's my biggest pet peeve. The biggest pitfall I see is over talking during the close.
What percentage? I mean, I know this kind of differs, but I usually tell people they need to listen 75% and talk 25%. I mean, but in
Yeah.
fact, I've seen some, I think like Fathom, like that connects a lot of people use for sale. If you do stuff online, I think it actually tells you the percentage of which each person talked to for that
Yep.
reason, right?
Yeah, I mean, and a lot of the modern VoIP systems out there, so like a Just Call, things like that, they have AI built into them now that will
Yeah.
give you call summaries and call reports and amount of talk time and how many questions were answered. So they'll do a lot of that for you. But yeah, at 75-25, 80-20, you know, these are guidelines just to get it in your head. The client should talk more than you.
Yeah. Yep. Let's talk about the status of the economy. So I know a lot of people, it's easy as a business owner to say, well, the economy's tough and people don't have a lot of money right now. And I know it depends on what the offer is. If you're a business opportunity, like there's people that are maybe lost a job or they're looking for another thing because they don't feel like their job's very stable. Or if they're selling a house, you know, they're like, well, because of interest rates are high, I can't afford the next one or whatever. Just talk about the role of the economy in sales, and then talk about the psychology of how the salesperson gets screwed up by thinking about the economy.
Yeah, I think that is just another BS excuse, in
Yeah.
my opinion, in the sales world, right? I mean, I just look back at like the 2008 crash. Everybody was losing their mind. I was in a REI coaching environment and with John Beck and Sean Higgins and those kind of guys. And that was when I was running that massive sales floor, right? And everybody was freaking out like, oh my God, we're never going to be able to sell anybody coaching. 2009 was one of our biggest revenue years. Why? Because we changed the conversation, right? I'm dealing with a person that has a crypto offer right now. It's one of my clients, and we all know what's going on with crypto. So it's just about changing the conversation. 3 months ago, everything was booming in crypto. So the conversation was, this is amazing. Ride the market. Now that it's turned, it's like, this is amazing. It's the best time to buy. So it's just, you know,
Right.
stop using things like that as a crutch. Our sales going to be a little bit more tricky? Sure. It just means you need to spend more time building that rapport, that trust, and doing things the right way. Right. So
Especially warm and hot leads. Like they contacted you for a reason, right?
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And, you know, when we're looking at the real estate market, I mean, you know this, I think we're going to see another, you know, shift in the market where a ton of foreclosures are going to hit and things like that that have been hidden from us for a while. And that's just going to be a boom market for anybody what's getting in, you know, and
Yeah.
a boom market for people that are already in. You just have to play it right.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. And what are your recommendations, Leif, for people that, you know, sometimes people go through a sales training program one time and they did it 4 years ago and then I don't need additional training. And then you could say, well, hey, even the best athletes in the world like practice and train like every single day. So kind of talk about like how to stay sharp, how to get sharp and how to stay sharp.
Listen to yourself. It is the only thing that works. Okay. So, obviously you need to have a strategy, and you can pre-game and you can pre-call, and I get into all of those kind of things. But here in this short time frame that we have together, Mike, if I'm going to give somebody one piece of advice, constantly listen to your calls. Constantly be breaking down your own calls. It's one of the hardest things to do. Nobody wants to listen to themselves, but I promise you, it is the biggest return on time that you can do in the sales world, is listening to yourself.
Yeah. And learning from it, right? What to say differently, what to not do.
Exactly.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Leif, thanks for spending some time with us today.
Hey, it was my pleasure. A lot of fun.
Yeah, good stuff. We could probably talk for hours. So, what
Oh,
if
yeah.
folks want to learn more about you or connect in any way, where should they go?
Well, they can go to, if they want to book like a free power session with me, they can go to thesalesfloorguy.com.
That's a good one. Easy to remember.
Easy to remember.
Awesome.
And then
Well,
also, if people are looking for a really complete sales training, I did put one together. You could check it out, and that's joinusatoday.com. And then I'm going to do a deal for your people, Mike, /podcast. So those are the two best ways.
awesome. Well, thanks again for joining us today, and everybody. I think if you're doing the sales, you got to stay sharp, right? Sometimes as an owner, you feel like you're the best salesperson, and you don't need training, you don't need this. I've been doing it for 20 years, whatever the things are. I mean, again, even the best athletes in the world have tons of coaches and practice every single day. And if you're not keeping your sales team, sharp and using trainings and stuff like that, listening to their calls, which again is a pain in the butt, but has to happen. You got to make sure you're doing that. And if you need any help, definitely reach out to Leif and learn more about what he's got too. So, Leif, thanks again, my friend.
Hey, it's my pleasure, Mike. You take care, okay?
Yeah, you too. Everybody, I hope you got some great insights from today's show. Looking forward to seeing you on the next one. Have a great day. Take care. Thanks for joining us for today's show. You can learn more about the amazing benefits of the Investor Fuel Mastermind community, including surrounding yourself with hundreds of other rock stars, 100% financing on your deals, and members-only discounts from vendors you're likely already using that, as a member of Investor Fuel, will save you more than the cost of your membership. Visit investorfuel.com to learn more. You can also check out the show's notes for access to free resources, how to get access to world-class lead generation, and even how to work with me directly one-on-one. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another episode. See you on the next show.